Okay, I hope I'm audible to all my students who are attending this particular lecture for the CBSE Class 12th Economics course. In this particular lecture, I'm going to start with the discussion of the CBSE 2025 sample paper discussion. Okay, so all students who are attending this particular lecture can see the sample question paper on your screens, which corresponds to the year 2025. Okay, so let's quickly come down to section A, which contains all problems in the macroeconomics module. All students can see this on your screens. Okay, so I'm going to start with the discussion of question one, which is all based on MCQs. Okay, and assertion based problems and objective type questions. Okay, so section A primarily is going to contain all objective type questions, which are going to be either statement based questions or assertion based questions or true or false type questions. Okay, so let's quickly start from the discussion of question one in this particular lecture. So let's start with the discussion of this lecture. Let's look at question one. Read the following statements carefully. Statement one, level of consumption has a direct impact on the amount of savings the households can accumulate over time. Okay. And statement two, higher consumption often leads to lower savings, while lower consumption tends to facilitate higher level of savings. Now, first of all, students, when you look at the question, you should figure out which topic in macroeconomics this corresponds to. Answer is very simple. It corresponds to the unit aggregate demand and aggregate supply, which we have covered in depth in our CBSE class 12 economics. Okay, and particularly these two statements correspond to my lectures on propensity to consume and propensity to save, where we had derived the consumption function as well as the savings function. Okay, and we had learned in our lectures that consumption and savings, they add up to income. So obviously an increase in consumption will reduce savings and a fall in consumption will increase savings. If I quickly come to the whiteboard just to explain this to all students, I am just writing the main heading for completeness. We are looking at CBSE class 12 economics, CBSE class 12 economics 2025 sample paper discussion. This is 2025 sample paper discussion. 2025 sample paper discussion, and we are looking at section A of this particular question paper. We are looking at section A. Okay, section A corresponds to macroeconomics problems. So all problems will be based on the macroeconomics module. Remember, the class 12th economics course as per the 2025 pattern has two modules, macroeconomics and Indian economy. We'll come to Indian economy a bit later. We are now starting with section A. Question 1. Recall from my lectures on aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Recall from my lectures on aggregate demand, AD, and aggregate supply, AS, that income is equal to consumption plus savings. Therefore, increase in consumption will imply a fall in savings, and a fall in consumption will imply an increase in savings. To keep the Y constant. In both these cases, if I want to keep Y constant, if my income is constant, an increase in consumption will cause savings to fall and a fall in consumption will cause savings to rise. That means if I come back to the question paper, read statement 2. Higher consumption leads to lower savings and lower consumption leads to higher savings. This is true. And if I come back to statement 1, level of consumption clearly has a direct impact on savings. Because when consumption goes up, savings falls. When consumption falls, savings go up. That means this statement is also true because consumption is having an impact on savings. So my answer is statement 1 is true and statement 2 is also true. So my answer is C. Both the statements 1 and 2 are. So you can also check up the answer. Both the statements 1 and 2 are. Coming back to question number 2 now. Coming to question number 2. Okay, let's look at question number 2. Again, read the following statements. Now we have an assertion and a reason. Okay, and we want to check whether both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. Both are true, but reason is not the correct explanation of the assertion. Assertion is true, but reason is false. Assertion is false, but reason is true. Okay, so these kind of problems often come up in the Cbse exam for economics. Okay, let's look at the assertion. Growth and social justice is the central objective of Indian planning. India opted for planning to utilize available resources efficiently to establish the social justice. Okay, so if you look at, first of all, let's first of all check whether the assertion and the reason are correct or not. Okay, so all this is a part of the government budget. So this topic comes from the government budget. Okay, and you can clearly see that when India adopted for planning in 1951, when we started with the 5-year plans, obviously growth of the Indian economy, achieving social justice were all central objectives of Indian planning. So my assertion is true. Okay. Reason: India opted for planning to utilize available resources efficiently and to establish social justice. This is also true. One of the reasons why India opted for the 5-year plans was to utilize the resources more judiciously and also more efficiently with the least cost, employing resources with the least cost and achieving social justice. But if you look at the reason, this is not the explanation of the assertion. Assertion is different, reason is different, both are true. But if you carefully look at the reason, it's not explaining the assertion. India opted for planning to utilize resources efficiently and establish social justice is not the reason for growth and social justice being central objectives of Indian planning. So my answer for this question is assertion and reason both are true in their own statements, but the reason is not correctly explaining the assertion. The reason is not correctly explaining the assertion. So my answer is option B. Students can also match it here. Both assertion and reason are true, but reason is not the correct explanation of the assertion. So this was discussed orally. We don't need the whiteboard for this. Coming to question 3 now. Okay, let's look at question number 3. If the government implements a tax cut and people use most of their extra money to increase their consumption, this suggests about MPC that, what does it suggest about MPC? When there's a tax cut, okay, what happens? A tax cut means your income has gone up. When your income has gone up, you increase consumption. Okay, so what will tell you about MPC? Okay, so it tells you that the MPC is high, indicating that people are responsive to changes in income. My answer is option D. Obviously, it is not applicable in the situation. This is wrong. It is low, indicating people prefer savings over spending. Again, this is wrong, because when tax cut occurs, income goes up. I can write here that a tax cut causes income to rise, and when income rises, because you are responsive to income increase, I can say that MPC rises. I can say that consumption increases because MPC is high. Consumption increases since MPC is high. So what I'm trying to tell all students is that a tax cut will cause your income to rise. In response to higher income, you are going to increase your consumption. Why are you going to increase your consumption? Because MPC is high. If MPC was low, you may not increase consumption by that much. Because MPC is high, you're going to increase consumption in response to an increase in income. So it simply tells you that MPC is high, indicating that people are responsive to changes in income. Okay, so hoping students have understood this. And it was also given to us that people use their extra money. This extra money was coming from tax cut, because when tax cut occurs, your income goes up, you have extra money, and when people are using their extra money to increase their consumption, it means MPC is high. If you are using your extra money for savings, then MPC would have been low. But in the question, you are given that you are using that extra money to increase your consumption. That means MPC is high. And when MPC is high, it means people are responsive, highly responsive to changes in income. Okay, so my answer is option D, as all students can see. Now, coming to question number 4. Let's look at question number 4. A positive balance in the capital account of balance of payments of a country indicates what? What does it indicate? Now, again, students can refer to my lecture notes and lecture videos on balance of payments and exchange rates. Capital account primarily records transactions relating to purchase and sale of assets. So I'm writing it here. Recall from my lectures on balance of payments, BOP, that country's capital account records transactions relating to sale and purchase of assets. When I say purchase of assets, it means you're making investments abroad. You are buying assets abroad. Okay, so when there's a positive balance in the capital account, does it mean that the trade balance is positive? No, not necessarily. Trade balance is positive when your exports are more than imports. X denotes exports, M denotes exports. When exports are more than imports, then your trade balance is positive. So this is not correct. Does it mean that the currency is depreciating? No. It doesn't imply that the currency is depreciating, because a positive balance in the capital account actually means that foreign investments are coming into our country. That means foreign currency is coming into our country. Okay, so when foreign currency is coming into our country, I can say that the supply of foreign currency in our country is increasing, and when supply increases in our country, then the domestic currency appreciates instead of depreciating. I'm repeating it again. A positive balance, if I come to the whiteboard, just to explain it to our students, what does a positive balance mean in the current account? So a positive balance in the current account means, I can write, not the current, let me correct myself, capital account. Positive balance in the capital account implies inflow of foreign exchange in our country. Inflow of foreign exchange in our country. And when there is an inflow of foreign exchange in our country, it implies increase in supply of foreign currency in our country. Increase in the supply of foreign currency in our country. Now, let me quickly draw a diagram that when there is an increase in the supply of foreign currency, what happens? So, on the horizontal axis, we have quantity of foreign currency, and on the vertical axis we have the exchange rate, nominal exchange rate, which is E. This is the demand for foreign currency, this is the supply of foreign currency, this is the equilibrium exchange rate, E0 star, and this is the equilibrium quantity of foreign currency. A positive balance in the capital account simply means that foreign currency is coming into our country. Coming into our country means supply of foreign currency in our country is going up. It means the supply curve will shift to the right. If it shifts to the right, you will see that the currency will appreciate. The domestic currency will appreciate. So you see that the domestic currency appreciates. This is appreciation. Recall this from my lectures on exchange rates. Domestic currency appreciates instead of getting depreciated. So if I come back to the paper, you can clearly see that currency depreciating is not the correct answer. It is experiencing a budget surplus? No. It does not mean that a positive balance in the capital account does not mean a budget surplus. A budget surplus occurs. When does a budget surplus occur? A budget surplus occurs when the revenue of the government exceeds its expenditure. So I'm writing it here. You have a budget surplus. Budget surplus occurs if the estimated receipts of the government if the estimated receipts of the government exceed the estimated expenditure of the government. Only when the estimated receipts of the government exceed estimated expenditure of the government, then we say that there is a budget surplus. A surplus in the capital account does not mean a budget surplus. So that means this is also not the option. Look at option D. It is receiving more foreign investments than it is making abroad. True. This is the correct statement, and this is the answer. A positive balance in the capital account means that foreigners are going to invest in your country. That is why funds are flowing into your country. Foreign currency is flowing into your country. Because foreign currency is flowing into your country, that will be used by the foreigners in making investments in your country. That means it is receiving more foreign investments or foreign currency than it is making abroad. So my answer is option B. Okay, and then let's look at the last question I discussed for today in this lecture, question number 5. In the web of financial interactions, when individuals harmoniously enter into agreements to honor the repayment of a loan at a designated point in the future, they are engaging in which pivotal function of money? So students, recall all the functions of money I have covered. Recall the functions of money. We have covered this in our module on money and banking. Okay, so remember, money can be used to make payments deferred to the future. This was one of the functions of money we had done. Money can be used to make transactions of buying goods and services. It can be used to store wealth. Okay, it can also be used to make deferred payment. That means payments deferred to the future. It can be used to settle debts or loans at a later time. So when individuals are harmoniously entering into agreements to honor the repayment of loan at a designated point in the future, then which of the functions of money corresponds to option D? A steady foundation that helps to agree on how to settle debts or loans at a later time. That means deferred payments, payments which are deferred to the future. You can use the money today to settle loan contracts or debt contracts in the future. Okay, it's not option A, a safe place to keep the wealth. It's not option B, a tool that helps to compare values of different things. We are not talking about unit of account here as a function of money. It is not option C, a bridge between people who want to buy things and people who want to sell things. Okay, it is only option D if you look at it very clearly. Okay, so I stop in this particular lecture. It was a short lecture. We have discussed the first 5 objective type questions from section A, macroeconomics. In the next lecture, I'm going to start from the discussion of question 6 onwards. So I stop in this lecture. I hope students have enjoyed this particular lecture. Any doubts in this lecture, you can unmute your mic and ask, or you can get in touch with me for doubts on call or WhatsApp, or you can mail me your doubts at divineschoolofeconomics@gmail.com. This is where I stop in this lecture.